All right, so hey people, Russ Jensen, about 10 after 4 p.m. on the 22nd of November 2016 here in Salt Lake City, Utah. I want to talk to you a little bit about the legitimacy of this book, Law of Nations. Okay, now I guess I could talk to you about the writings of Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, Madison, the fact that they speak about this book, the use of it, having it, how it came at a time of good season when they were writing these documents. Hmm. Or I even instruct you and show you different places. If you go to the preface, things have been written in there over the years by different authors. In fact, in 1958, I think it was, they had to write a congressional act. So they're going to make some minor changes in the preface. But I think it's more instructional for people, and certainly a lot more powerful for people, especially when you talk to other people about this uh, issue, about the legitimacy of this book, Law of Nations, and how it really does apply, how it really is part of your Constitution, and it helps us to help start to establish a little bit of our own critical thinking skills. Okay, so if you get a copy of your Constitution, and I'm going to go to one right here that I have open online here. And we go down and look in Article 1, Section 8, which is the Enumerated Powers Clause. And we go down to Clause 10, this is what it says. To define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas, comma, and offenses against the law of nations, semicolon. Now, if you've read that book, once you start to read that book, you start understanding that it is, a lot of it, geared towards uh, governmental organizations. In fact, all of it. And then it references us as individual members of society and our relationships, things like that. But it starts talking about the sovereignty, right, of a nation, a governmental state. Mhm. United States of America, Canada, Mexico, Great Britain, China, Russia, whatever it is, okay? Those are sovereign governments. Everybody understands kind of the idea of governmental sovereignty. The Canadians don't dare come down and tell us Americans how to run our government, or write our legislative acts or anything else, because we have sovereign authority. Okay? And that book, Law of Nations, also it talks about the importance of nations and cooperation and understanding, but also says in there that a nation state has no duty and obligation to any other nation state. Period. That would defeat the concept of sovereign authority. Okay, it's supposed to be done in mutual the spirit of mutual cooperation and consideration, all those different things. Okay, so we stop and think about this for just a second in that particular context. Okay, now people say, oh, well, it's just for international law, it's just about treaties, just for governments only. And I'm saying to myself, huh, now if my legislative body, Congress, United States, been given some authority, some power to do what? To define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas, comma, and offenses against the law of nations, and they can't go to Canada or Mexico or Russia or China or anywhere else and tell those people what might be a felony, what might be an offense against the law of nations. Huh. Wouldn't they have to be directing those uh, definitions, those punishments against towards who? You, me, individuals, the members, the people of the United States of America, would they? Hmm? Wouldn't that have to be? That's the only people, that's the only place they have any authorization to write any legislative acts for, isn't it? You. So, common sense, our abilities to understand, put things in a proper context of saying, hey, Congress, defining and punishing piracies and felonies which are committed out on the high seas by I suppose whoever's doing that, and offenses against the law of nations. That has to be directed against the only people they have any authority from, or any authority to act on behalf of, or any authority to write laws for, is you and me as individual members of the United States of America. Okay? That's why it is incorporated directly into your Constitution, why it is it's constitutional law. Every word, every paragraph, every punctuation mark in that book, Law of Nations, is constitutional law. Okay? It's there by direct incorporation, right there at Article 1, Section 8, Clause 10, to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on the high seas, and offenses against the law of nations. Because the only people they can legislate for is you and I. That means that you and I, in order to understand and know what these offenses are, we would have to have access to be able to read the book. In order to read the book, we would have to understand and know that it applies specifically to us. Now, I'm going to go here. I should have brought it up right here, but I'm going to bring up real quickly a case here from Utah. Supreme Court ruling. Utah State Supreme Court ruling. And actually, it's the Mooney case about peyote. But there's something very interesting when we read this this holding by the Utah State Supreme Court that I want you to keep in consideration when you're starting to read and understand these things. And what it is about what I just said to you is what we have to understand about law and the laws that are legislated for us in on our behalf. This also talks about something I talked about too, about the guidance and statutory interpretation of the plain and ordinary meaning of the statutory language, the words. Okay, let's see, where is it? Right here. I think it's down here just a little bit further. Sorry, hang on a second. I'll just get to this real quickly. But it's talking about the fact that these constitutional guarantees of due process. Oh, right here it is, okay? Both the United States and Utah constitutions protect citizens from deprivation of liberty or property absent due process of law. Constitutional amendments 5, 14, Utah Articles, Utah Constitution, Article 1, Section 7. And the constitutional guarantees of our due process require that penal statutes define criminal offenses with sufficient definiteness that ordinary people can understand what conduct is prohibited. And it named a couple of cases: Callender v. Lawson, that's a U.S. Supreme Court case; State v. McGuire, which is a Utah Supreme Court case. But what it's saying is that the statutes, the laws, must be sufficiently simple. They must be accessible. Now, the only way that your Congress, the United States, can write and define penalties and define the punishments for felonies committed for offenses against the law of nations if the law of nations is accessible to you as an individual member of that society, isn't it? Now, I know it's probably isn't a very good explanation, but it's one that you need to start thinking about and understanding the fact that, yeah, that book, it's real, it exists, it was put in place for you to use. It doesn't belong just to the government. It's not just about international treaties, international law. It's everything. It is your Constitution, okay? I've explained in some of these other short videos. So that's it for this. The legitimacy of the law of nations is established primarily by its usage and our understanding that our legislative body has to write, if they're writing laws, defining offenses, penalties, they have to give us the information of what they're writing, and it has to be done in a way that's sufficiently clear, sufficiently defined, that ordinary people can understand what conduct is prohibited or allowed. Okay? And it goes both ways. Okay? Laws apply to everyone in the society, including the legislative body. So that's it for today. This last little short little lesson, probably the last one I'm going to do today. Maybe I'm kind of tired. My issues are starting to flare up, but um, all right. Well, love everybody. I hope these are being a little bit more clear, a little bit more clarified, and staying on point a little bit better, step by step. We're going to start getting some really great stuff. It's very interesting. It'll be very, very powerful, help people an awful lot in developing some positions, your paperwork, some things that give you a much better sense of understanding and hopefully some control uh, uh, and confidence in stepping forward and engaging and doing some of these things that we all believe we have rights to do, which we do, and at least giving us a better opportunity to prevail in our positions as we move on through our existence here. So, love everybody, and I'll talk to you next time.